The Man of the Law podcast. I am speaking today with Chad Lyman. You can find Chad Lyman at C4C Operator on Instagram. Chad Lyman is also the founder of C4C PJJ. He's got 20 plus years law enforcement and patrol, FTO, gang, SWAT, and kind of the list goes on and on. You've been doing this for a real long time. You're a use of force subject matter expert, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt for many years, and professional MMA Jiu-Jitsu coach. And but some of the bigger things that I really wanted to talk to you about were, C4C PJJ, which is police jiu-jitsu. You also have PFC training, and under that is the Code 4 concept. So you're involved in a lot in the use of force industry and the police jujitsu. And that's, really why I wanted to talk to you. You're kind of one of the, the pioneers in this industry, and you've been doing it for a real long time. And, I've been doing it for a small amount of time. That's why I wanted to talk to you and get your advice and your feedback on some stuff. And I know you're very well respected in the industry. And those of you who don't know me, the Man of the Law, I'm here in Chicago. I've been a police officer here in Chicago for just about 9 years in patrol. I work the south side of Chicago in a district on the south side. Been in patrol the whole time, coming up on 9 years. Previous to that, I was a correctional officer at the Cook County Jail. So I did 4 years there, and that's where I started my career. So, about 12, 13 years law enforcement and about 12 years of jiu-jitsu training. It kind of coincides together. And that's when I started. I started at the jail. And, there were some other officers there that trained. I think they were out in the suburbs at like Gracie Baja or something. And they're like, do you know how to fight? And I was like, yeah, I know how to fight. And they're like, nah, do you train? And I was like, no. So they're like, just take a jiu-jitsu class and see if you really know how to fight. So I took, I think, a noon class at Brazil 021, got schooled, almost threw up in the garbage can. And I went, I should probably be training this. And especially as a law enforcement officer, I saw the connection right away with, what we do on the street. We grapple with subjects and we have to control them. So it's a big part of what we do. And, you're kind of one of the pioneers in the industry. So I did see, you kind of even started, I think in 1998, it says at Hicks and Gracie in Portland. And this was, for people who don't know, in 1998 training jiu-jitsu, there was probably a handful of black belts in the United States, if that, so you were kind of one of the like original people training jiu-jitsu in the United States and in the fight game. So welcome to the show, and glad to talk to you, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, my brother actually started before me and he's earned a black belt as well. And so we're two American born black belts in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And he started before me, and then he's the one that got me interested. I'd already started as a police officer. At that time, I was with the city of Portland, on to Portland State University, and got my degree, and then got on with the city of Portland, and didn't have any martial arts background at the time. And then the early UFCs were coming out. My brother told me to watch those. I started watching those, and I think they were probably on 4 or so in 98. Like UFC 4 is early, is definitely under 10.
Yeah, it
And
was real early days. Yeah.
yeah, and I started watching those, and then rolled with him. He lived in another state, but he came to visit. When I say rolled, he just kind of smashed me.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, in Portland at that time, Straight Blast Gym, which still exists in Portland, was a Hickson affiliate at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And the highest ranking BJJ belt in the state of Oregon was blue belts.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a few blue belts, and they were almost all like Straight Blast or their affiliates were almost all the coaches. And I stayed under that lineage ultimately to my black belt and received my black belt. There was a division in the team, which often happens in jiu-jitsu teams, and Impact Jiu-Jitsu, which is led by a guy named Michael Chapman. I stayed under Michael, and he awarded me my black belt in 2012. So it took me from 99 to 2012 to earn it. And it- mixed in there before I even earned my blue belt, kind of an interesting piece of early MMA history. Straight Blast is where Randy Couture, Dan Henderson, Matt Linland, before they opened Team Quest, Rob Follis, they were all at Straight Blast
Yeah.
with us. And Randy was going to fight a Brazilian in the UFC. And at that time, the rumor is, and listen, this is not firsthand, but this is what came down through the gym.
Mhm.
We switched affiliations to Hegan Machado.
Okay.
And the reason given for that was that Hickson said that they could not train Randy to fight a Brazilian.
Yeah, they wouldn't do it, right?
And
Yeah.
back in the early days, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Now, I never heard Hickson say that, so that's a little bit secondhand, but I believe that's what occurred. And I don't have a reason not to believe it. And these were the early days of MMA. Back then, they used to try to say Brazilians wouldn't fight each other either.
Right.
And so rather than not train with Randy, we just switched affiliations. And I didn't have anything to do with that. This was so early that we would work in for rounds for the guys who were fighting. But a number of guys came through that Portland area in early MMA. You had Nate Quarry, you had Matt Horowitz, you had Evan Tanner,
Yeah.
you had Eddie Herman, Chris Lyman. Now those guys more came once Quest got opened,
Right.
and split from us. And Straight Blast stayed like Straight Blast started as a JKD school. And then they went away from that. And they're a straight Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu MMA team now. But that Straight Blast team is the same team Conor McGregor belongs to in Ireland. They're a worldwide team, and that all started in Portland, Oregon.
Oh, okay.
Gym that I used to go to. And they have locations all over the world now. They have them in England, they have them in South America, South Africa. They've got them in Europe, they've got them in Ireland. And so that gym's a worldwide team now. But that all started right there in a small, well, it was decent size, but a gym right there off MLK in Portland that I used to train at.
Yeah. And you were like right place at the right time with just happened to be like, kind of the mecca of, some training right there with some of the kind of best people in the business now. Yeah, that's amazing.
The Pacific Northwest, you really had an explosion there. You had Misha Tate, Brian Caraway. Misha and I are friends to this day. We didn't know each other well then. Josh Haynes works for the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. He was up there. I knew Josh. So Josh works at LVMPD with me.
Okay.
So there were a lot of in those early days, though, he was not a cop. He had no interest in being a police officer. And I was the only, at that time, there was me and one other guy named Nate Wolstein. And Nate was an Aikido guy. Traditionally, he was a cop with Portland, and he started training too. And I think we got our blue belts together, if I remember right. And Chris Howder awarded me my blue belt.
Okay.
And then went on up through the ranks. But from 99 to 04, I was in the Portland area. And then in 04, I moved down to Vegas.
Las Vegas. Okay. And then you just, continued your jiu-jitsu training, just the same, right? Yeah.
Yep. Continued to train with gyms down here. Actually started coaching in 06.
Okay.
Because I've always been conceptual and principle based. And really that they taught me that in my early days, man. Matt Thornton, Mike Chapman, all these guys early on, Rob Follis, all these guys were very conceptual and principle based. We really looked at, it was very, very important to know how and why something worked and how and why it didn't work.
Right.
Then to find an application. So even in those early days, we might be working on a certain sweep, but what we would focus on is the details of taking away a post, off balancing someone and generating some momentum and moving them. I've over time created some of my own principles and concepts, but I got all that from them. I got all that from Matt Thornton, Mike Chapman, and those guys to this day teach in a conceptual manner. They teach in a principle-based manner.
Mhm.
I believe it makes their guys very, very tough when they fight.
Yeah.
So,
And I kind of see that in a lot of the high level people in the industry. They all have a background in jiu-jitsu, and I kind of came to that point where I'm at 11, 12 years training. I'm a brown belt now, and we had some over the past few years some major kind of use of force incidents across the country. We don't have to get into those specific, but I trained with Andre Terencio and Hanet Stack at Brazil 021. And they said, you're a brown belt now, you're teaching some fundamentals classes, we want to help police officers, get better at use of force incidents, once they started to realize, our training and how we're trained and that we really don't have any kind of grappling or jujitsu in our police training in some parts of the country at least. And so they said, yeah, start a class, start bringing them into fundamentals. And they really kind of opened the doors to, big law enforcement supporters. So they're like, yeah, they wanted to be part of the solution instead of just saying, oh, look at these cops that don't know what they're doing on the street. And so that's when we started this Friday night class. And then it just so happened that I'd been running the class for a while, just fundamental jiu-jitsu for police officers. And Jay Wadsworth with the EFC came to Chicago. So I took his 40-hour course, got certified as a level 1 EFC instructor, which was great. Learned a ton from Jay. And like you said, it was the big thing I see when you talk about stuff is principles and tactics and not just techniques. So could you kind of like talk about like, because I've seen that transition too, when you first started out, you're working on techniques, but in law enforcement, these principles or concepts are, I think, more important too, working angles, positioning, and those things. And I know you're big on that. So could you just discuss that a little bit?
yeah, there's a couple things that are really, really important. One is when you study learning that has nothing to do with jujitsu or MMA or boxing or police tactics. When you study guys who are focused on the art of learning and the art of recall and the art of being able to retain information, there's a number of different models that are used out there. One of them talks about well, any of them that you use will talk about the lowest form of learning is rote memorization.
Mhm.
And so if you had a ladder of how do I learn or a pyramid, the bottom rung or the bottom floor is whatever the technique is for jits or MMA. And so it's important, it's not important, but for us to retain that lesson, and what they compared it to in normal learning is crash learning or memorization. So someone who's trying to pass a college class, I'm a college graduate. I could not tell you what was on my freshman English class. I passed it.
Right.
I got a thing, I can look at a grade, but I can't tell you what was
Yeah.
on the
You
test.
you just remembered it for
Yes.
that short period of time, and then
I
yeah, exactly.
regurgitated it and
Right.
I passed the class, right?
Hmm.
Um, Instead of that, if so you have that bottom rung, which is whatever technique it is, a sweep, whatever it is. Then you have to go to the next rung, which is how does this work? And then the next rung would be well, how and why would be an important thing for you to talk about. And those are your
Mhm.
principles or your concepts. How do I make this successful? How do I get a high percentage of likely success? Then the next rung is when doesn't it work? Why, what are common breakdowns? So we've got the technique, how and why it works, and those are principles or concepts. And then when might it not work? When some common failures. Then the next level, which is super important for anything you're learning, is we have to have application. So you have to
Mhm.
take whatever information you're learning and apply it to your everyday life or your job. So we have to have an application. After we have whatever it is we're going to train, how and why game, we're the why guys. We want to know why it works, why it doesn't work, how it works, when it doesn't work. well, then we need to have an application. That application could be in a training setting. And that application could be in the street, and both are valuable because both give you feedback. You can't quite replicate what's going to happen in the street in the training room, but we can at least have a facsimile of what we're going to see. Once we have that application in the street or in practice, we're going to have a debrief. And once we debrief the event, if you'll repeat that process of whatever it is we're training, how and why it works, when it might not work, an application, a debrief after the application where we look at, okay, what results did we actually get? What's working? What's not working? Well, then you can start to evolve and you'll start to see things change. And you'll see this in jiu-jitsu along with everything else. I'll give you an example of early jiu-jitsu. In 1998, if you went to half guard, that was to try to retain your guard as someone was passing and you just reclaim full guard. Half guard was not an offensive position. It was not a position that guys would necessarily go to on purpose or sweep guys out of or submit them.
Okay.
If you were on half guard top, you were way ahead, and we would always try to go back to guard. I can remember distinctly, I'd moved to Vegas and I was a blue belt in 04 and I was competing a lot. We had a guy on our team who was American born who was a brown belt. And we used to call him half guard Mike because he had an offensive half guard game. And what he did is Mike took the half guard positions. And he said, why can't I do the same techniques that I do in full guard? Just with half the body, maybe a half butterfly. How come I can't do these sweeps? What sweeps can I do? What works? What doesn't work? When does it work? When does it not work? He started applying it in practice. Pretty soon he's applying it in tournaments. And he's got a very unique offensive half guard game. He's pulling half guard in tournaments and beating guys. Because half guard is traditionally a defensive position where you lock onto that leg, you frame on the other knee, you try to bring your knee up through, and you try to reclaim some kind of full guard. Mike's not doing that. He's going to half guard. He's winning the underhook battle. He's winning the inside head position battle. And now he's coming up on an elbow. He's getting mobile and he's playing half guard on these guys. He's beating high level guys in tournaments because it appears to be new. And all Mike's doing is debriefing on his own, what's working, what's not working. And then he's creating. Well, now you have whole guard systems based off half guard. That's the evolution of the game. So we can do that same model within our own training for law enforcement. So that's one thing that's very important on why I want to be principle or concept based. The technique, the steps in the technique are the least important part of whatever it is you're teaching your people or whatever it is you're learning. So let's move on to the second part, principles and concepts. A lot of people or a lot of systems will say they're principle and concept based, even like take room clearing in law enforcement. What's your principles of room clearing? Speed, surprise, violence of action. Those are principles. Those are not how fast, what do you mean by violence of action? In law enforcement, we have to announce repeatedly going through the house. If I hear a noise in the back half of the house and you and I are doing a clear on an alarm, we don't go silent and sneak up on the guy.
No, we announce, and say we're here.
We start yelling. We yell before we come.
Right.
Someone calls you at 123 Anywhere Street in Chicago. You and I get dispatched. The door's cracked open. The homeowner says, I came home from vacation. The door's cracked open. You heard anything? No. We're going to start yelling. There's no, so surprise is out the window.
Yeah, that's true.
Why are we teaching that in room clearing? It's beyond. There's no surprise.
No.
Speed will get you killed. You dive into a room and I'm slow to cover your six and the guy in the corner's ear hole on you.
Yeah.
So these aren't real. They're just parroted through the tradition of law enforcement. Some real principles of room clearing might be, how do we deal with closed doors? How do we deal with open doors? How do we enter the room together? How do we cover one another? Those kind of things are the principles of room clearing, right? How do we search? What do we do on contact? Those are all principle-based things that different departments are going to teach different things, whatever it is, right?
Right.
Let's look at combatives. Krav will say violence of action or this or that. Well, that's an attribute. I don't think that's really a principle for me. So what is a principle? I believe your DT manual should have a heading, takedowns. For takedowns, The principles ought to be attack someone's posture, attack their structure, attack their base. Do those 2 or more of those 3 things plus an angle.
And you have a takedown.
Percentage for a takedown goes way, 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 way
Yeah,
up.
right.
So now we can train 4 or 5 different ways to break your posture, whether it be down, sideways, pushing the head back. Whether it be a body lock, pulling the hips to me, pushing the upper body back. I'm getting you out of posture, out of alignment with each other. If I break your posture, I'm also breaking your structure. We have to take each one of those things. We have to define them. What's a posture break? A posture break is anytime the crown of my head is pointed down and I'm looking at the ground. That's a posture break, even if I'm standing straight up and down.
Right.
Anytime my head gets outside my hips in any direction,
or back the other way.
Posture break.
Right.
Forward, back. So we can define posture quite easily, right? Now, structure. Structure is any posture break is also a structure break. So when I break your posture, I break your structure. Also, if I win inside position, I'm winning structurally. Another way I attack structure in a takedown situation is a 2-on-1 on an arm. I isolate an arm or a limb. I pick a leg up for a single leg. Okay. That's a structure break. You don't have 2 feet on the ground. Well, let's look at that structure break. What's base? Base is my feet about shoulder width or a little wider apart, slightly staggered. That's good athletic base. I can absorb punishment. I can deliver punishment. I can move. Anytime I make you stand on one foot or the other, I take away your base. Anytime I put your feet together, your base gets compromised. Anytime I separate your feet, your base gets compromised. Anytime your feet cross, base gets compromised. So we've got posture, structure, base. Anytime I drive you in a direction and do like a knee tap. Let's say I have an underhook.
Like a high underhook, yeah.
I go knee tap on the knee and I'm running across your face. Well, now I've got a structure break with the underhook.
Right.
I get a posture break when I throw it this way and you get off balance. And then when I trap your knee and you can't walk, you don't have good base. So I'm using posture, structure, base with an underhook to a knee tap. The technique can be whatever we want it to be. Body lock, pull head in front, body lock, push the body out of alignment. I've got inside position. So I've broken your posture and your structure. I'm on your hip, not belly to belly. So now I've got an angle, my hip space you, your hip space away. Now I'm executing a knee buckle, body lock knee buckle, and sitting you down on your butt with that body lock. These are all, the techniques are interchangeable, but if you're really principle based, each category, punch defense. What's our punch defense principles or concepts? It's cover, control distance, create an angle. If I do those 3 things, you're unlikely to land effective punches and knock me out. Doesn't mean you can't. But it means you're unlikely to do so. How do we cover? Well, we could cover here, 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 here. I could cover, I don't care how you cover. We can train 7 different covers. That's one of the principles of punch defense. So anything you're doing should have principle or concepts. And at Vegas Metro, when we wrote the lesson plans, when we rewrote them, we would say the category, takedowns, team takedowns, whatever it is. Then we would put the principles or concepts, and then we would put the techniques that we as a department are going to train. But it,
yeah, that's a fantastic way of looking at it too. It's you put the takedowns, then the principles, and then the techniques under, and I think that's fantastic.
Because at the end of the day, if I can get guys to understand, if you get their head looking at the ground and you get under their arms and you get on a hip at an angle, you're going to be able to wrestle them to the ground much
and no
easier.
matter where that goes, you just change up your technique because you're still creating those same concepts. Yes, that's fantastic.
Think of being on the back. So I'm on a suspect's back. My right foot is a little bit forward. My right arm is reaching across in front of his waistband. His left arm, my left arm is under his armpit and over his left forearm. My right arm reaches over and grabs over the arm. So now I have a 2-on-1. behind, I've got an angle,
Inside position.
structure break, because I've
Yeah.
got inside position,
Yes.
and I've got a 2-on-1.
Right.
And so now all I have to do to finish my takedown is attack his base or attack his posture.
Right.
If I drive him forward onto his face, it's a posture break. If I trip him backwards onto his butt, I'm attacking his base.
Hmm.
But I've got an inside position 2-on-1 from a dominant angle.
Right.
And now I can just start, I could even take him to the side. It doesn't matter. And so
Right.
what's happening is the cops start learning, okay, it's just same.
Yes.
When I teach, I'll make the cops tell me, okay, what principles are we using? We did this sweep. Sweeps from guard. Sweeps from guard, because when you're principle and concept, here's the other value of being principle and concept based. There's cross contextual from different positions.
Hmm.
If I just stay technique based as a DT system, or even a jiu-jitsu or MMA system, because at Extreme Couture, we're principle and concept based.
Right.
Although I don't coach fighters anymore. We'll get into that in a little while, because it's important I make the distinction, because I'm judging fights now. I haven't judged every fighter I ever cornered, which I did corner fighters, retired before COVID. So all my guys are thoroughly done.
Keep your judging separate. Yes.
I believe 2017 was my last guy I did any work with retired, and I don't work with our MMA team. We have other judges, or we have other coaches who coach at Extreme Couture. But even at Couture's, everyone who's winning at a high level, or I shouldn't say everyone, most people that are living at a high level in the jiu-jitsu world or the MMA world are principle and concept based first. They understand how and why crap works, and then they teach whatever they're teaching. And that's the truth with most of them. So we want to replicate that in law enforcement or self-defense training. Here's the other real good principle here, though, brother, is standing up to do a takedown, posture, structure, base, plus an angle equals a high degree of success. Now I'm in the bottom with a guard, butterfly guard, half butterfly, half guard, close guard. Okay, it doesn't matter to me. If I win posture, structure, base, and I create an angle, my success on my sweeps goes through the roof.
Yeah, like a basic scissor sweep. You're going to pull the arm, pull the back of the head. You're going to turn, change the angle, and sweep. So all those principles are there. Yeah.
So a scissor sweep, I've got inside position on the head. That's a structure break.
Right.
I'm cupping a arm. I'm not really controlling it. That's somewhat equal, right? My inside position on the head is a structure break.
Right.
Pull that forward, getting his head out in front of his hips or
breaking the structure. Right.
Now the structure and the posture are broken. And now I can hit that sweep because I'm attacking the base. Something important to realize. If I win posture, structure, and base, I don't need an angle.
Okay.
Because I'm dominating everyone.
You're dominating all three anyways, right? Exactly.
All three. There's no other, and that's what a scissor sweep basically does.
Right.
Scissor sweep pulls them down a little bit to an angle, but I'm taking their base away, and I'm winning structurally. I'm winning the posture war. I'm winning structurally, and I'm attacking their base.
Right.
So if you come to a PJJ class, we're going to teach principles throughout the whole thing.
Right.
How we teach your principles. The I method's actually a straight blast gym thing.
Okay.
Other people teach that.
I've heard of it. Yes. Yeah.
They got it from me, but I got it from them. Right. You know, I got it from Matt.
Yeah.
And the guys at Straight Blast and Rob Follis. And it's basically, I'm going to introduce whatever it is we're going to train. We're going to isolate it and drill it and build skills. We're going to integrate it by doing some sparring or some scenarios for law enforcement.
Yep.
And then we're going to have an inquiry or a debrief on the back end of training. And that's a way that I can structure principle and concept driven training. And
get the actual officers thinking about the principles in the debrief, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Even in the lesson.
In the lesson too. Right.
Yeah, in the lesson, you know.
Right.
A guy's coming forward and I cover, I control range by crashing,
Mhm.
and she crashes forward. I dig underhooks. I slide to an angle. I get a body lock. I get my head in there, and I execute a takedown. All that's principle and concept based.
Yeah. No,
And
I agree.
and I'm doing techniques to do. Techniques are vehicles for principles or concepts.
Right.
And too many people teach a technique driven, even in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
This move of the day, step 1, step 2, step
Mhm.
3, step 4, step 5. So think of the typical jiu-jitsu class, and one day they're teaching butterfly sweeps, and next week they're teaching knee cut guard passing. And then the next week they're teaching close guard flower sweep. And then there's no continuity in many
Right.
places.
Yeah.
There's no real curriculum.
Mhm.
They're not teaching a principle or concept based manner.
Right.
If you teach in a principle and concept based manner and you constantly are on your students, let's go back to the same flow. Let's say I'm doing arm bars off my back, and then I'm doing arm bars from mount, and then I'm doing a Darce choke. Well, if I'm concept and principle based, and I truly have that throughout my system, I can keep coming back and go, well, what principles are we using to successfully complete this?
Right.
Where are we winning inside position to get the Darce? By the way, Darce defense, if I don't give you inside position, you can't Darce me.
Right.
So I can reverse engineer and defend
Mhm.
principle and concept based manner too. You break my posture and I don't let you have inside position and I free my head. And as you try to fight for an angle, I square up with you. Well, now I got my posture back. I didn't give up a structure break. My base was great the whole time. And you attempted to create an angle and I countered it.
Right.
And now you're going to have a hard time taking me down.
Yeah. And I think people get stuck in that, like, oh, I'm doing this technique. Why is this technique not working? And maybe it's not the technique because you're not, achieving the principles you need to do these techniques. And that's a big part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's another principle that we teach is in the early jiu-jitsu days, a really common saying was position before submission. And I think that that's continued over the years.
Sure.
But Rob Follis started saying position before everything. And he used to say, win the position you're in. That was one of our principles. So, for example, if you are on my back and we're seated and you're on my back with hooks and a seatbelt,
Mhm.
I'm not going to give up a seatbelt, number one. I'm going to keep my elbows inside, my hands inside, and I'm going to make you reach around my arms. If I don't
Mhm.
let you under an arm, you don't have inside position. Now, you still have inside position with your hooks, with your feet.
Right.
But I'll give you an example of how being principle and concept based makes you tough to kill or hard to kill, hard to finish, even defensively. So most guys will allow a seatbelt from behind because they'll think that arm's under this arm and he can't choke me with it or she
Right.
can't. They're giving up inside position to the person at a dominant angle on the back. And they'll start to try to remove the foot hooks. The problem with doing that is the person who is on the back will just transition to an arm lock or a head and arm choke or the mount.
Right.
They'll just go from one spot to the next because they have inside position. So as you start to move their feet and your upper body is compromised, well, nobody's submitting you with their feet from behind. They're
Right.
submitting you by trapping your arm and winning inside position. Even a triangle from an inverted triangle from behind, I have to have inside position underneath
Right.
your arm. So if you were on my back and we were training and you secured hooks with the seatbelt, I'd leave your feet in.
You'd fight the seatbelt first. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to
Yeah.
get my arms back inside. Now
Okay.
you're reaching around my arms, not under my elbows. Now I'm going to escape the position.
Right.
You can't submit me as I leave, or it's
Right.
hard.
It's
You can't-
hard. Yeah. Much harder.
It's much harder. So those are training scars that are unintentional
Yeah.
things that we've created in jiu-jitsu.
Mhm.
When the position you're in, that principle, think of side control bottom. and I have a,
Oh,
I
I've
have a,
been there.
I have an opponent. As you're laying on your back, you have opponent on your right side, right
Mhm.
arm, right leg. Okay, think of that.
Right.
If your coach said today, everybody gets side control top and bottom,
Mhm.
a training scar we have in jiu-jitsu is almost everyone's going to lay flat on their back and do this. And the guy's going to get a far side underhook and get underneath my head
Yeah.
and go chest to chest top.
Mhm.
And we're going to get a frame with our near arm on their hip. But they're going to grab our
Frame.
face
Frame.
and they're
Yeah.
going to grab under our arm.
Mhm.
So they're going to get structurally they're winning. Hold on one second.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm on call. We're getting some text.
Uh-oh.
Hold on. No,
Something
we're
going
good.
on?
Yeah, no, we're good. I don't have to leave.
Okay.
Okay. All right, I'm back. Okay. So I'm side control bottom, partner side control top. I can go to almost any gym in the nation and go have a seminar and just go, okay, everybody get side control bottom, side control top, and escape. And everyone's going to lay down, allow the person to get inside position under the head,
Right.
inside position under the forearm, get chest to chest, be past their guard. So they're at an angle.
Mhm.
And then they're going to try from there to start feeding frames in and get in a hip and turn into the guy or the gal. That's not side control bottom. That's side control. You're getting murdered.
Right.
Side
Yeah.
control. You're getting dominated.
Yeah.
Side control bottom should be prayer hands
Mhm.
on a hip facing the individual. And if you can get your knee to your elbow, that's great, but that's not really side control. So I'll give you, you could have if you're side control top, you can have a knee near my hip.
Right.
Otherwise, not side control. But I get to turn into you and I get to frame under
Right
your
away.
chin, and I get a
Right.
frame here and not let you grab my head.
Yeah.
You
Let
don't
them
have
work for the underhooks. Let them try and flatten you because that's
that's
where it needs to be. Right.
because the position, we have a default to the worst. Now, are there times I'll make my guys or gals flatten out and we'll give up everything? Yes.
Mhm.
That should not be your default.
No,
So
you shouldn't be on your back. Right.
one of our principles is don't be flat, turn into your opponent, have good frames, don't let them control your head, don't let them have an underhook.
Yeah.
That's side control bottom.
Yeah. No, that makes
It's
sense.
not lay flat. And I call it flatline jujitsu, meaning you're dead, meaning like you'll be that way in a grave or when you sleep.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
got little to do. That's the same thing
Yeah.
in jujitsu, letting you have both hooks and a seatbelt on me. That is the same thing as us sparring on our feet and me having my hands down and we're doing boxing.
Right.
Not a fighting position. This is a fighting position.
Right.
If you have my back, I have to allow hooks because that's the position.
Mhm.
I don't have to let you have upper body inside position.
No,
That is a training scar.
it is. Yeah. And we
That is
always
something
start
we've
that way.
done
Start
wrong
with the
for years.
seatbelt. Okay. Right.
Yeah, and we just give up a backside underhook. Here's the
Mhm.
other interesting thing. If I told you to start chest to chest, okay? And I didn't tell you have to give up inside position. Both guys or gals would be trying to get double unders.
Right.
But as soon as someone goes to your back, you just let them have underhooks and an overhook. I
Yeah.
don't understand it. Like you
Yeah.
don't even fight it.
No, because you're just so used to that's how you train. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So
just, oh, I start here. Okay. And then I go from there. Right. Because it's
and
just, yeah, ingrained in you over years. Right.
and what's in and then it's ingrained, I believe. We then sequentially escape these positions wrong, which opens us up to be hit or to be finished.
Right.
I want to be as hard to finish everywhere. I'll give you another example. Mount bottom, mount top.
Mhm.
If you were mount bottom, mount top, if I were winning the position I'm in, which is mount, let's say coach says, Chad, you're mount bottom, but he doesn't tell me I have to give up everything. I'm not going to have both legs up. So you could grapevine both legs. One leg will be straight on the ground.
Yeah.
One foot will be up near my butt. I'll be slightly on a hip. I'll have one frame across your hips as you mount me, and the other frame inside your near side out.
Yeah. Ready to start your escape.
Inside your near side knee.
Right.
That's how I win that position.
Mhm.
I don't get knocked out. You could still punch me, but I can bridge hard if you sit up to punch and make you put your hands on the ground.
Right.
But mount bottom is not both buttocks flat, both shoulder blades flat, back of my head flat like this, and the guy's on top of me.
That's how most of it starts. Yeah. And you're
But
halfway
gyms
dead.
will
Right.
start that way all the time. And
Mhm.
then you fight to the spot that ought to be your default.
Right.
So even that becomes principle based for us. We say, win the position you're in, win the spot you're in. Just because you're on bottom, you're definitely losing in a hierarchy of the fight. You should be on top. Don't be on bottom.
Right.
But if you are on bottom, win that
In the
spot.
position.
Now the sweep comes. Now
Yeah.
the escape comes. Now submissions from bottom come.
Right.
But until I win whatever spot we're in,
Mhm.
close guard. You're on top, I'm on bottom. You start to frame on my hips and you want to open my guard.
Mhm.
I get strong wrist control and I punch an arm. So now I'm arm in, arm out. And I throw a leg up over a shoulder and I throw the other leg up into your armpit. I've got a structure break. I'm pulling down on your head. I break your posture. Now I've got a structure break where I'm inside. I've got an arm in, arm out, which when you're in my guard is a structure break. That's a no-no. I broke your posture. Now I create an angle. I reach up, I grab my own shin. I lock in my triangle. I keep your head broken down, squeeze my knees together. You start going to sleep or you tap out. All that's
Right.
principle based. So we are on it all the time. There's
Yeah.
nothing we teach that we don't teach principles. Throwing punches, throwing kicks, defending punches, defending kicks,
Mhm.
defending takedowns, doing takedowns, team takedowns, weapon retention. And
Yeah.
all those principles go from standing to clinch, intertwined to ground. And they exist in all of those planes to a wall.
Mhm.
All those principles are the same. None of them change.
Right.
So when you're principle and concept based, our big three principles are attack posture, structure, base,
Mhm.
plus create an angle. Our big four principles of law enforcement are be mobile, transition,
Mhm.
okay? Make sure that you're transitioning, you're not staying with just one thing, create angles, okay? And then manage distance.
Yeah.
I'm in or I'm out,
Right.
okay? Those are our big four for law enforcement, but those are everywhere. Those are striking. Those
Right.
are on the ground. Those are,
And even in fundamental jiu-jitsu, they apply,
same thing.
and I'm so glad because I'm at brown belt level now, and Jay came with EFC, and I had just kind of started into the law enforcement training, but it really opened my eyes to that different type of training, that principle based training,
Good.
and how to do that, and then I've really taken a kind of a deep dive into a lot of your stuff too. I watch on YouTube and BJJ Fanatics, and I'm just trying to get better at my craft. I'm kind of making that transition from sport into more law enforcement. And, Chicago is officers are becoming more interested in jujitsu and more law enforcement based jujitsu. And, I want to bring them a fantastic product, and I want them to do more than just fundamental jujitsu because it's early days, and we have maybe 2 blue belts in class. Everybody else is very, very beginner, so we haven't really taken a deep dive into a lot of stuff. A lot of it's still breakfall, 2-on-1 basic stuff, just positioning, which needs to happen. They need to understand this stuff. We all start there. We all start at the beginning and have to work our way up. But since I've made this transition, I've just been seeking out, people in the industry that are very good at what they do and trying to learn from them and get better at what I did.
So as you're coaching these new guys and you're running these courses, try to find skill building drills,
Mhm.
reinforce principles and that are task based, games
Right.
that are task based. Okay. So when anytime I'm on bottom, posture, structure, base plus an angle applies all the time.
Right.
Right. But there are a few other principles that from bottom that are really important. We have to win inside position. Have
Right.
to. You got to win inside position to retain your weapons on bottom and not get damaged. You have to manage distance when
Mhm.
you're on bottom. You either are framing,
Framing. Yeah.
posting, even posting. beginning to move away. And one easy way that you'll do that's principle based, if I'm in your guard and you can see my face, you can begin to post on me and begin to get long and get away.
Right.
If you see the crown of my head, I'm trying to hold you down or hit you while holding you.
That's
then
a
you're
problem.
burying my head and you're sliding your butt out and you're starting to create an angle.
Right.
So I have a general rule that if I can see your face, I begin to frame and move me. If I see the crown of your head, I cup it, I rip it to the side, I get
And
my
go
hips
down.
up, and I
Okay.
begin to get up. Another thing that's going to help you move transitioning from bottom to top is high head wins. Never let them be right above you and have their head even above your head, because now I can punch down at you. Like if I stood up in your guard and
Right.
I started to move forward aggressively, and now I'm standing over you, I'm just draped over you. You never want their head above yours in a striking environment. And as soon, if they're trying to pressure forward in your guard, like they've got their head down and they're trying to move up and punch you in the body and the head, body head, like
Mhm.
guys do, rip their head to one side or the other and begin to get your head above theirs.
Right.
Another principle or concept is high head wins
High head wins. Okay.
when we're punching each other on the ground. The person who gets the highest head is punching is going to win.
You guys are gonna win that fight. Yeah.
You
That
think
makes
of
sense.
any fight, you think of the PFL, you think of UFC, you think of Bellator, where guys get guys trapped on the fence.
Right.
They start to get their head above them, and now they're hitting them. They're beginning to hurt them.
Mhm.
High head wins when we're punching each other.
Yeah.
So I'm either going to push you away or begin to frame you away and move myself away and get my head up where it's equal to or higher than yours.
Mhm.
I'm going to rip your head down and I'm going to begin to create angles. I'm going to be able to get my chest and my head above yours. And now I can hit you effectively. So just understanding some simple principles, we can go back to those over and over and over again.
Right.
That's a strength.
Yeah, no, I agree. And a lot of the, the stuff we've been working is just all, when you really break it down, it's like 4 body locks and they're all from the inside position, just no matter where you are on there. But it lends itself to, no matter where it goes, you'll probably easily, get an angle, close the distance, and get a body lock. And you're actually accomplishing those principles. So yeah, it doesn't have to be this crazy system of techniques. But when
No,
it's principle based, it just makes it a lot easier. What do I need to do? I need to create the angle. I need to close the distance. I need to get behind the elbow structure. And yeah, so that makes a lot more sense, especially in a combative weapon based environment. That's all those things are crucial things. Yeah.
so a lot of times when you're running training too, you might have things that relate to each other. Like I just mentioned, if someone's in the guard and they're trying to hurt someone punching them,
Mhm.
can I see their head, or is their head down and they're trying to pressure me down, hold me down and hit me at the same time? Or are they sitting up to hit me freely? So once the escapes for both are different and it's different techniques. So we could teach one, show the escape, drill the escape. Then we bring everyone back together and go, okay, well, now he might put his head down or her head down, hold us with one arm, hit us with the other, or have their head down and hit us. Now we show that escape and we drill that. So now
Mhm.
they've done an escape for if the person tries to posture and create space to punch, or if the person pressures and tries to kill their movement and punch. Because
Mhm.
those are the 2 biggest options,
Yeah,
right?
most common.
The most common. So we're going to have to deal with one of those if someone's trying to punch us from top position and we're in a guard, butterfly, half butterfly, closed guard, half guard even.
Mhm.
That's going to be their 2 main options. How we escape those could differ depending on the guard we're in. But we'll pick a guard and then we'll start to hit sweeps, reversals, stand-ups. You could hit one of each and drill it. And you'll have them drill and skill build. Then you can bring them back and you can actually have them do rounds where the goal is just one of those things. Okay, you're gonna defend strikes until they sit up enough you can frame, move away, and get up.
Right.
And that's the whole round. That's all we're doing. Once I get up, I go back down. Then we do it again. And you can eventually work 2 rounds where it's like, okay, bad guy's choice on whether he wants to be head down, pressuring, or head up, making space and hitting. And good
Mhm.
guy's choice on how they escape.
Right.
And you start mixing everything together and having them get reps. That's how people start to learn. One of the problems with traditional jiu-jitsu guys who are not police officers, even if their intention is good, is they may understand a jiu-jitsu outcome, which is even vastly different than an MMA outcome.
Right.
It's vastly different than a self-defense off-duty outcome.
Yes.
Which is vastly different than a law enforcement on duty, in uniform, badge displayed outcome. Now there's crossover that I can use skill set wise.
Sure.
From all those different things. But I guarantee you, if NAGA made it lawful for you to have weapons on your person and at some point go after them during the NAGA match, jiu-jitsu would change.
Oh, absolutely.
It would look different.
Yeah.
Because the outcomes would change. It doesn't mean jiu-jitsu is bad.
No.
If you don't have a jiu-jitsu, a strong jiu-jitsu base, I encourage guys to go get belts in jiu-jitsu, because what's going to happen is you're going to build this deep skill set and reservoir of things you could do. And then you're going to start to determine at what point in a law enforcement encounter, tactically, it's a good time to do whatever it is you've learned. And some of it you might never learn. You know, if you're a Berimbolo guy or something like that, you shouldn't even be using that in an MMA match very much. You have to be really, really good. You're going to pay a price. I'll give you another example. MMA, I think UFC has fights tomorrow night. Let's say I'm matched up with you and I lose the first round. What if the rule set said that for the second round, I could pick one of my cornermen and they could randomly attack you at any point in the round?
Right. Exactly.
Your jiu-jitsu would change.
Yeah.
And how you maintain top position,
how
you maintain any position would change if it was a thing where my corner is standing in the corner.
Yeah.
You and I start fighting. You get into this really good control position with your back turned to him.
Yeah, it's a problem.
And it's second round, so he's allowed to jump in anytime he wants.
Right.
And now he comes in and he attacks you. Well, your jiu-jitsu would change.
Yeah.
So,
agreed.
Many times what happens is people are well-intentioned, or people just want to make money. And some people are a bit of both. And that's fine. I don't care. We live in America. You can have a business. But they start trying to create systems and they stay right in the jiu-jitsu lane. And it's like,
it doesn't change much.
Holy crap, your guy couldn't fight in the UFC if he stayed right in the jiu-jitsu lane. He wouldn't win a fight.
Right.
Wouldn't win one if he didn't learn to wrestle, didn't learn to strike, didn't learn to counter strike, didn't learn to defend strikes.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to show you these things are going to work in a fight. And it's the only answer you need. It's not the only answer. It is the most lacking answer in law enforcement generally.
Right.
I look at wrestling and jiu-jitsu are the two things that guys can't be naturally good at.
No, you have to train.
You have to train.
Yeah.
Have to train.
Yeah.
You can be physically gifted, which can give you some benefit if you'll train. But if you don't understand the principles and concepts, then it's not going to work.
No.
Here's the other thing I want to make, just point that comes to my mind. In law enforcement, what do we call, when we teach new shooters to shoot, what do we call the lessons we teach them? The what of marksmanship? The principles of marksmanship.
Principles, yeah.
Right? We don't teach them the techniques of shooting.
No.
When we teach a kid how to drive in a pursuit, we teach them principles of driving the car efficiently.
Yeah.
How do I work the gas? How do I work the brake? My inputs on the wheel. I'm not yanking the car from side to side.
Right.
What kind of vehicle am I driving? Am I driving a attack vehicle? It's got a lot of weight to it. Or am I driving just a typical cruiser? Or am I driving a SWAT vehicle? Well, then speed matters, and how much I move the vehicle around matters on whether or not we're going to go through a building or not.
Yeah.
We use principles in every other part of law enforcement training. except for
Except defensive tactics, right?
DTs become
Yeah.
technique 1, technique
Right.
2, technique 3.
Yeah.
We don't do that in shooting.
No.
We don't do that in driving the car.
Yeah.
So that was another thing for me that was like an aha moment
Yeah.
in the early 2000s. From by 1990 by okay, I started training in 98. By 99, I was teaching my squad once to twice a week. They
Yeah.
were coming in before work and training with me because they were watching me on calls and I was doing really well on calls. So then it started with just my partner coming early twice a week, and we would train. We had these
Yeah.
full mats. We put them down in the hallway outside the locker room. People had to walk around us and walk over us. People made fun of us for the first little while until we just started dominating dudes
Yeah.
physically on calls
Hmm.
and having really concise, short, effective uses of force that were
Yeah.
not even reportable. We were winning fights and dominating the guys we were putting our hands on in
Yep.
such dominant fashion that we weren't even having to note it in a report like a blue team because there
Hmm.
was no injury, no complaint of injury, and we didn't use intermediate or higher force. We
Right.
used low level force. So then guys started training with us in the hallway. So within my own department, I was teaching by 99, 2000. By then I moved to Vegas in 04. I start over.
Hmm.
By 06, I'm a DTI for Vegas. Our academy was 6 months, and then our fill probation is just over 6 months.
Right.
So your first year with the agency, you're not even on your own. Well, the end of fill training, you're on your own for a whole block of fill training where your FTOs are shadowing you. They're just coming on the calls.
Hmm.
Um, so it's about a year before you're doing stuff on your own in Vegas. Then you're running calls on your own. By my second year in 06, they sent me to DTI school and I became a DTI for Vegas Metro. And 2006, same year I started teaching courses professionally. By 2012, and then PFC, we mentioned PFC.
Hmm.
PFC is Progressive Force Concepts. It's owned by a guy named Steve Christic, who worked for Vegas Metro, also a former military guy, great guy.
Right.
Another guy I learned from as an instructor.
Hmm.
Steve's a phenomenal instructor. Brian Hartman, who's one of our instructors, phenomenal instructor. Chris Frazier, another great instructor. Doug Janowitz now, a great instructor. Chris Fry. All these guys are such great coaches.
Hmm.
Trap Snyder works for PFC. He's a phenomenal coach and a black belt. So all these guys work. Chris Fry's a black belt under me. All these guys are phenomenal coaches, and I'll watch them coach and I'll learn from them. But everybody's doing it in principle and concept-based manner. Steve Christic, my partner, is one of
Hmm.
the best coaches I've ever seen in my life for
Right.
shooting and tactics, but he's so busy with the business, he never gets out coaching anymore.
Hmm.
But I started training with PFC as a student in 04, shortly after I graduated the academy. That continued to 2006, where I was just taking classes on my own, shooting and tactics, room clearing, that kind of thing
Hmm.
from PFC. And then I started coaching combatives for PFC, but I also had my own company. And then 2012, we merged. Steve and I merged our two companies together, and I own the combatives wing of PFC, and he owns the company. If we ever split,
Okay.
I'll keep PJJ. That's mine.
Right.
D4C is Code 4 Concepts. It's interesting. I'd named my thing Code 4 Concepts. He had named his thing Progressive Force Concepts
Yeah.
because we both were principle and concept based.
Yeah. On the same wavelength. Yeah.
And we
Absolutely.
wanted it to be known even in the name of the business
Hmm.
system. We wanted that there. And so it's always been.
Yeah. And I think that's why, you're doing so well and people gravitate to you because they see the benefits of that. And I recommend to new students, uh take 2 nights of fundamental jiu-jitsu and then on Friday night come to the law enforcement class. If you can only come to the law enforcement class, that's fine too. But I think, adding the fundamental jujitsu along with the law enforcement based, which is basically I'm teaching, more fundamental jujitsu with, EFC combatives because they're um basically becoming certified by the Chicago Police Department. It's going to be, um, basically part of our GOs. So it's I got to teach what's, going to be used on the street. So that's, why we're doing it. But, nothing against jujitsu, but I think you need some fundamental jujitsu to learn and become, have a foundation. And then, like you said, get into these law enforcement classes like C4 PJJ and work on the concepts and the principles. And that's just so important. And, so yeah, it's really good to see a lot more officers doing it too. And Invictus is also part of C4 PJJ.
No, it's not. They are
It's
their
it's
own company,
separate.
separate, completely
Okay.
separate. Um, they just, both those guys are certified instructors, under me. Um, much like, so there's so many guys that are so good, they could do their own
Yes.
thing.
Yeah.
Like
And
I
I know
get
the two gentlemen with Invictus are, yeah, both fantastic. I know that.
phenomenal,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. Yes.
But they're busy with Invictus, they're busy being cops,
Right.
they're busy running gyms. So they're good enough to coach with us and under our flag.
Hmm.
And they are guys, they promote they just promote their whole mindset is trying to get cops to at least train jujitsu on a regular basis because that's been a big part of the missing part of the curriculum
That's
for a
kind of
long.
where I'm at too. Even for people that don't want to train with me, I'm like, go train somewhere. Go find a jujitsu gym.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%, right?
Yeah.
So the Invictus guys are just dear friends of mine, and although I post about them so much and I put up so much stuff, it probably appears that I'm either working for them or they're a business partner. They're not. I'm just throwing love their way because they're
Sure.
doing a great job and they're incredible.
But I figured they had trained under you at some time with C4 PJJ, right?
They did, and I'm grateful for that. But certainly, I benefited from them coming to me. Like I'm very
Mhm.
grateful they did, and they openly support and recommend us as a training venue. They try to get cops to just train, and then their seminars are about bringing in black belt cops to help other cops train.
Sure.
And there's a number of other really good businesses out there. I mean, Rob McGow with Officer
Mhm.
Survival School, Rafael Ravello with uh, MMA Tactical Lab or something like, he's got a company in Florida and
Yeah.
he's a great guy. He's doing good stuff. EFC is doing good stuff.
Hmm.
Jason Sports does some good stuff. BJJ 50, I think it is.
Yeah. Jiu-Jitsu 50, Jason
Jiu-Jitsu
Swartz. Yes.
50. Yeah, he does
Yeah.
some good stuff. There's
And he's very rooted in fundamental jiu-jitsu and jiu-jitsu based. And yeah, I spoke with him. Really good guy. Yes.
good dude.
Hmm.
Been doing it for a long time. And a lot of guys have been doing it for a long time. I feel like there's a little bit of a misnomer because um I realize a lot of guys have been doing this for a long time, been training
Sure.
in cops. I'm not the only one.
No.
But I have consistently over the years uh tried to get the industry to change and train more and more jujitsu. And
Yes.
I've consistently pushed for that industry wide. And then the other thing I'm really pushing for and that I've been an advocate for is at the end of the day, one of the reasons law enforcement is broken. So CPD is going to adopt EFC curriculum. That's great. I'm super familiar with the curriculum.
Mhm.
Some of it's straight out of what I teach.
Yeah.
So
Very principle based, just like your stuff. Yes.
yes. So um that's phenomenal. The other change that needs to happen though is it's not so much if I'm training that system, this system, the other system. It's how often are we training?
Where's the consistency? Yes. Where's the
And that's the
consistency?
big problem.
Yes.
So having gyms, people like Annette and what is, it's her husband, correct?
Andre Terencio. Yes.
That's her husband, correct?
They were married. They're not married anymore, but yes.
Okay,
That's okay. That's okay.
didn't speak about stuff I don't know.
Yes.
Both of them, though, are pro law enforcement.
Yes.
Both of them are trying to get cops to train
Consistently.
And so answer consistently and
Yes.
offer consistent training.
Mm-hmm.
PJJ, we do that with gyms. We have affiliate gyms.
Right.
And what they do is we give them the curriculum, we give them our video library, and we allow them to actually promote cops in jiu-jitsu and C4C at the same time if they want to. PJJ, or give seminars or give weekly training like you guys. We give them an actual curriculum and they can take that and run with it. So
yeah.
We started doing that, and then other companies have followed suit, such as EFC.
Yeah.
And you know, anytime the idea is a good idea, people are going to log on to it, and then it just gets more play, for lack of a better word, which is good. So gyms like Kinet's are a good opportunity for cops to train a lot. But the other push I'm really making is to say to administrators, why don't cops train every week? Why do you care if a guy is out trying to hunt traffic stops? That same guy in his downtime should be able to anywhere from 2 to 4 times a week train on the clock.
Yes.
At work as part of his work duties.
Agree.
And that's how we're really going to change.
Yes.
Because we have 2 problems in law enforcement. One is ridiculously not good curriculum. It's either forget principle based. Sometimes the techniques they're teaching are crazy nonsense. They're not going to work.
No.
You couldn't fight your way out of a paper bag. They'll say, well, we're teaching these techniques because we got lowest common denominator. We got to train to them. I'm a staunch opponent of lowest common denominator training.
You got to bring them up. You got to bring them up.
Well, here's the thing. I don't even care about them. What I want to teach is the most fundamental, most correct, easiest, most reliable way to do anything. That's the game plan. That's the curriculum. That is our foundation. Get everybody on that foundation. Our great guys who are super motivated, super in shape, and actually have a black belt. Get them on that, and get our guys who are motivated but don't have training. Get them on that, and they get our crap guys. Lowest common denominator person in a law enforcement training room. Let's say I hold DTs. The LCD people in the room are the people who don't want to be there, who have a horrible attitude. It's not like they're missing a leg or they're mentally, they have a mental defect, you know, but they're employed as a cop with a gun belt, and they you know, they're over in the corner having a schizophrenic meltdown or something. Although some people are very emotional, but whatever. You understand what I'm saying? The lowest common denominator is the cop who's most disgruntled, who's lazy, who doesn't want to be there. Why would I make a curriculum for that person?
Exactly. They're not going to do anything anyways.
Why would I aim for him? When Vegas Metro was going to put me in AOST, which is our advanced training division, advanced officer skills training. It used to be called survival training, but then that was mean. So they changed it to skills training, which is fine. Because really we are teaching them skill sets. I went to AOST. Before I went to AOST, they actually had a conversation with me offline. I had passed, I'd made the list, and they were concerned that I was going to try to make everyone an MMA fighter. And I've got this captain talking to me who doesn't train, who has no background in coaching.
They have no idea what they're talking about.
No idea. And he goes, I want you to understand you got to train to the lowest common denominator. And so I knew this was an important interview because I had to help him understand. And I said, Cap, what's the goal of the program? Because Vegas Metro is a good department, but they like to kind of pride themselves as being we're the best department and all that stuff. It's hype. I don't buy into it, but they'll say it out loud. Mighty, mighty Metro, all this nonsense. So I know what they think they are. So I said, Cap, what's the goal of the program? It's to be the best, most well-trained department in the nation and have the highest execution. He starts doing mighty, mighty Metro to me. And I say, okay, how do I accomplish that by targeting our worst employees? How do I achieve excellence by making a lesson plan based on mediocrity?
Yeah, you'll never get there.
and he gets quiet.
Hmm.
And I go, you know, in the public sector, that's the only place we do that. In the private sector where I coach, like
Those guys get fired. Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna fire that dude at
Right.
Extreme Couture. We're not
Hmm.
gonna make training for the worst guy in the room.
No.
We're gonna make the most fundamental, the most principle
Yeah.
based, solid foundational training we
Yeah.
can. And then the good guys are gonna become great.
Yeah.
The crap guys are gonna become better.
Yep.
And the guys who really suck are gonna get better. Everyone's gonna level up if we can teach them how to be fundamentally sound
Yeah.
and principle and concept based sound. They're going to
Absolutely.
all start preparing. They're going to all start competing better.
Yeah.
And so I said to him, lowest common denominator training, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
But I'm also, I said, how many hours do you have of training people to be competent in a combative endeavor? Because I get paid, you know, my side business sheet is in. I have to fill it out every year to have permission to coach on the side. And I said, I coach people from housewives to children to everyday people to professional athletes in the private sector. And I coach them all how to win combative events. If I did that in an unsafe manner, if I did that in a manner where they didn't retain it, if I did that in a manner where the stuff I taught didn't work, I'd have gotten fired several
Long
years ago.
time ago. Right.
This
Exactly.
is competitive in my world.
Yeah.
In this world, I went to DTI school and you guys blessed me.
Yeah.
And I could read off a cue card and bore
And
everyone.
teach them nothing. Right. And
Yeah,
it's
I
still
could be
right.
horrendous.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
said, so I understand the mission and what we're doing. And I actually, I'm doing that every day
Yeah.
privately and I make good money.
Yeah.
You know, I've been so blessed coaching. At this point, I've been all over the world. I have affiliates all over the world on the PJJ side.
Hmm.
And I make more money coaching on the side than I make as a police officer.
Yeah.
And so, and I have for years.
Yeah.
And so I'm really, really blessed. And when I'm done being a cop, I'll just continue to coach until
Yeah.
I'm done. The
Yeah.
only
You're,
reason I'm not coaching fighters is I'm starting to judge fights. I'm working my way up. This year, I believe I'll do UFC fights. And so once I start doing professional judging, that'll be
yeah.
another gig for when I'm retired.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. Yeah. And yeah, a lot of the things you said just make complete sense. And you know, I'm kind of in that, you know, point too. Like I took the 40-hour course with Jay. It's fantastic. And right when I finished, I was like, I need to start training this like today, like right now. This needs to be consistent. Like every Friday, we're putting this stuff into effect right away. And nobody seemed as concerned as I was. You know, I was like, you need to train this. You need to train it consistently. We need to be doing it right now every week. And they're like, oh, maybe we'll implement it next year or whatever. You know, I was like, no, this needs to happen like right now. So we started implementing that right away in our Friday night classes and taught us a ton of stuff in the 1 week. And I'm taking all those and just breaking them down into just small little pieces for the officers that are coming in. And but I'm a big believer in fundamental jiu-jitsu and in consistent training. I'm 48 years old. I'm not
Yeah.
super athletic. I'm not super tough guy, but I consistently train. I keep showing up, and I keep trying to get better. And that's, you know, for me, that's half the battle, you know.
So there's a lot of things that are legitimate that can get in the way of training.
Mhm.
Time is, I've got a finite amount of time.
Yeah.
Money, if I don't manage my money well. But just like my philosophy is to keep me training. It has nothing to do with motivation. I'm not motivated at all. There's days I don't feel like training.
Yeah, me too.
I love it. I enjoy training. If I go too long without training, I'm driven to train.
Mhm.
So it's part of me now. But I had to come up with ways to keep me consistent, like you say. One of them is a rule of three, and that's it's not really a rule, but a buddy of mine used this in a different context. So a buddy of mine at church says, hey, have you ever noticed in nature there seems to be threes? If I go 3 minutes or longer without air and I don't get more air, I'm probably going to die. If I lose 3 pints or more of blood, I'm probably going to die. If I go out in the desert, we live in Vegas. If I go out in the desert for 3 days, no shelter or water, I'm going to die. Nature seems to have these rule of threes. He said, if I don't read my scriptures or pray for 3 days or longer, I begin to lose touch with God. And I don't want to go too much into God. Some people don't believe in God, but he related the story to me. I'm simply saying where I got the formula, right? So then I related that to training, and I said, if I go 3 days or longer without training, and training is combatives, training is not weightlifting and running, that's conditioning. Training means a combative exercise. That could include shadow boxing or drawing with the blue gun or clearing my own house. It could include something like that if I can't get to the gym, or solo drills like sprawl drills or hip escapes or tactical stand repeatedly for conditioning. That could be a training session, but I don't have a 3-day period where I don't train ever. So, and you're getting worse right now while we're having this conversation. So if you have this conversation about training, but you don't train for a month, you've gotten way worse.
Yeah.
So I don't have a 3-day period. So I trained today. So my clock got to set and I have 3 days. Well, I know I'm training in the morning, and I actually train on Thursday. So I'll train tomorrow on Saturday. I take every Sunday off unless I'm coaching or I'm on the road and I have to train. I take Sundays off. I go to church. I spend it with my family. So on Saturdays, I train. I know I have until Tuesday night to train. That's it. I must train Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah.
After I train on Saturday, because I'm on a 3-day clock. I don't have a 3-day. We go on vacation. I'm training. My wife and I went on a cruise. I'm going around the cruise looking at dudes' ears because I'm hoping to find a dude that I can invite back to the room.
Right.
Which is totally weird.
Yeah. That's
because I want to roll.
Right.
And
That's
I
hilarious.
actually see dudes who recognize me
Oh, yeah.
from online and follow me, and they don't train, and they're cops.
Yeah.
They won't train with me, and we're on a boat. I'm on a boat with thousands of other people, and there's not a single man who will train with me. So
That's crazy.
my wife knew I had to, twice during the week, I had to do sprawl, shadow box. She went down by the pool, said, hey, I need to train. She goes, I know.
Yeah.
She
Your
goes down
thing.
by the pool, hangs out, and I do a solo training session.
Yeah.
Because I can't find a partner. I'm trying.
That's
When we
crazy.
went to Peru, she looked at cities and gyms in cities, said, you can train here, you can train here. Because we went to Peru for like 8 days.
Yeah.
So she's like, you can train on this day. When we fly out, we're going to have a layover. You can train in that US city before we fly to Peru. And she had gyms already laid out because she knows I'm going to train. I don't have a 3-day period in my life. I don't train. So the rule of 3 is one of the things I use.
Yeah.
The second thing I use is C over T equals R. The C is consistency. Consistency over time, the T is time, equals results. C over T equals R.
Perfect way to look at it.
There's good news and bad news. You always get a result. You cannot not get a result.
Yeah.
The result cannot be, I want to stay the same.
Right.
There's no stay the same.
Yeah.
So what you do consistently over time gives you a result. What you do consistently over time gives you a result financially. If I consistently over time live above my means, every time I get it, how many of the kids get out of the academy and get their first raise and go buy a brand new truck?
Yeah.
And we tell them, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, it's only $1,000 a month. And we're like, that's a waste. Yes.
That's your whole freaking raise. You
Yes.
didn't get a raise.
No.
You're spending more than you were spending before, and you didn't get a raise.
Yeah.
So C over T equals R with my finances. C over T equals R with my relationship with my wife. C over T equals R with my physical fitness and my eating habits. Now often am I working out. C over T equals R with my training. You cannot be good without consistency over time. And the result is you're getting better or you're getting worse. I like the 1% a day improvement thing, but I don't experience that. There's days I don't get better at all.
Yeah.
There's days I don't have a good day in the gym.
Yeah.
That's a day in the gym. That counts for C over T equals R. Because
Yeah.
the eventual result is I'm gonna get better.
Right. But there was
Get
no
better.
result that day. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some days I make a eureka discovery,
Right.
and I make a jump.
Hmm.
Some days I'm just getting throttled, man, and I
Yeah.
can't seem to get on track.
Yeah.
Some days are just consistently good, and maybe I got
Right.
1% better.
Right. But you're
Not
there and you're still
1%
putting it
better
in
a
though. Yeah.
day. It's consistently over time. I'm working. Another one that
Mhm.
I use, because I really believe in principles, even in my formulas to train, is a triple S theory. Triple S series says small efforts sustained over time, small being an S, sustained
Mhm.
over time. Give small efforts sustained over time give you a significant result.
Yeah.
So it's the triple S series, small effort sustained over
Yeah.
time, significant result.
Yeah. Do a
So
little, a lot, as you say, right?
a little, a lot.
Little, a lot.
These
Yes.
things are principle and concept based. So
Yes.
even down to how we train, it's
Hmm.
not just what we train. What we train is one part.
Yeah.
How do we train?
How you train, it's, yeah, that's a big, big difference. Yeah.
And if that's principle based, you're going to be on your way. If you're
Yeah.
following a formula, find formulas and systems that deliver a consistent result.
Hmm.
And that's a secret to being as good as you can be. Training doesn't guarantee me a win.
No.
It guarantee me a loss. It
Hmm.
guarantees I'd be better than if I didn't do it. It
Yeah.
guarantees growth. Consistent training is the only way to grow. It
Yeah.
does not guarantee you'll be better than anybody else.
No.
You know, you've been
Yeah.
training now for years on a consistent manner. And when you shake hands with Jay, he's going to give you a hard time.
Yeah.
It doesn't guarantee you'll beat Jay.
No.
But what if you had not been consistently training all these years? You're not even going to be competitive. You're not even
Right.
going to have to answer.
Right.
So
Yeah, that's true. In full disclosure, I rolled with Jay on lunch rolls and he beat me pretty good. So yeah, I'm
Jay's
kidding.
Jay's Jay's one of the more talented police officers,
Yeah.
physically
Yeah.
and individually.
Yeah.
He's very, very talented, and he's a very good coach.
Yeah. And he's super intellectual. I learned a ton from him. And it was like, every question I had, he had, not just the how, but the why. And really, he's taken a real deep dive into a lot of this stuff. And he's, yeah, a great, great resource. And,
Good.
but we're running out of time here, Mr. Lyman. We talked for a good time and we could talk jujitsu and law enforcement and we can go on and on, but I will let you go and very, very grateful you talked to me today and you took the time. I appreciate it.